Please help me give big smooches to my guest, Jillian Turecki.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me.
I have been following you for a long time, and I've been listening to your podcast for a long time, and you're just so excellent at what you do because you have not only so many years of experience, but the way that you deliver the information is so heart-centered and so both complex and easy for people to understand at the same time. So I don't know how you do it, but kudos to you.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much for the praise. It means a lot to me. Very much so.
Of course, of course. And I've even as a professional in this space, I've learned a lot from listening to your episodes and the way that you help people really go inside and figure out how they need to show up differently to get what they want. I think that's something that we share. That's at the core of all dating and relationship advice. So, I'm a dating coach for a long time. I've been helping people to find their forever relationship. And there's something that really irks me. I wrote about it in F the Fairy Tale. This idea of the one, of finding the one. And spoiler alert, I've listened to your episodes and I know how you feel about the one. But I'd love for you to share with my audience why you also call it the myth of the one.
I think it starts with the fact that, why do we even want the one, right? We think that the one, like, what do we think the one is going to give us? And the quote unquote one, what people really want from that is a feeling of completeness and wholeness. And that is what ultimately I believe the reason why anyone would really want a relationship, a loving relationship, is to feel more whole and complete. And the the paradox is a good relationship, even through its ups and downs, and I know you've been married for 20 years, but a strong relationship, one in which you ultimately fundamentally feel secure in and connected in, even though you'll obviously go through different seasons, does add significantly to our lives. In the same way that a bad relationship can destroy our lives, really can. It can really mess us up. And so, what we're looking for in a relationship is to feel more at one with ourselves, more at one with, even if this is not the way a person thinks, for some, it would be more at one with God. For others, it'd be more with one with the universe, just feeling more connected. And that is something that, even though the paradox is, yeah, when you meet a really good match for you, someone who can really do life with you, it is going to fill some void, some. It's going to add to your life. But it's not that sense of oneness we actually have to find within. We really do. We have to be able to, and we're not going to always feel at one with ourselves and with the world, because if we were to always feel connected, then we would never appreciate it. And suffering is feeling separate. It's the opposite. Suffering is when we lose sight of the fact that we are whole beings to begin with. And so part of life is feeling empty sometimes. Part of life is feeling like there's voids inside of us that will never be fucking filled. And that our job, our task is to figure out ways to feel more connected with ourselves without only relying on this one person. When really it takes many different people, many different connections with people, many different relationships, family relationships, friend relationships, community relationships. And so when we think of it just there's just this one person, we're thinking of, whether we want to admit it or not, what we are recreating in our mind is a fantasy of being rescued. And the thing is, no one can actually really rescue us. They can make our path easier and we can make their path a little bit easier, but our problems are still our problems. And I think that what happens on a subconscious level to many, many people is that they wake up one morning next to their spouse or next to their partner, a year in, 2 years in, 5 years in, 10 years in, and they're like, what the hell? This is not what I expected. I'm still anxious. I'm still depressed. I still have these problems. Why didn't this relationship, like, why don't I feel better? And that's when we have to look in the mirror and say, because this person was meant to be a supporter of your path, they can't walk it for you. And so, this myth of the one, which is that there's just this one person for you that's going to make everything disappear, it's BS, because there's the one when you're 17, there's the one where you're 25. It's like you have to choose who that right person is for you, because there are lots of different paths that you can go with a particular person, or with different people, I should say. You have to decide who is the right person for you. And so I hope that answers your question.
It sure does. And I want to add, there was an episode you did on this where you had a great sort of rebuttal for when someone asks you, how to know if somebody is the one. You said, the one who will what? Right? Am I quoting you correctly?
Oh, right, right. The one who will what?
Remind me of my parents, the one who will
Yes,
trigger all
exactly.
my anxieties, the one who will or on the flip side, the one who will take away these fears,
Yes.
take away these pressures. And I'm with you in that remembrance of we are actually the one. And I have been very outspoken on this topic because people always have come to me saying, "Well, I'm looking for the one." And it's like, well, you choose the one. As you were saying, even this idea of soulmates that I talk about in F the Fairy Tale, that this idea that there's a predestined person,
Right.
one soulmate who's going to complete you, it it pushes away our need to show up whole ourselves, because I mean,
Yes.
that's even the idea of soulmate is like, I'm coming in half a person, and then I'm gonna look for my twin flame, my soulmate, the person that's going to make me whole again, and it just cannot work like that.
It cannot work like that. And also, it's very misguided because people, and I've been this person too, we get obsessed with the one is the one who's going to meet all my needs. When a relationship is not a place that you go to just get, it's a place that you're supposed to give.
Right. Right.
Like, you're actually supposed to meet needs, believe it or not. It's not just about you and your trauma and your childhood and your inner child. It's theirs too.
I think that's a really important point for a lot of people to realize, because I see a lot of dating from this is from my vantage point, and we sort of forget that the other person is having their own experience, and then we we become afraid to either open up and say what we really need or meet that person where they're at, because we are addicted to that idea of the fairy tale and we want to be rescued, and it's supposed to look
Yes.
a certain way, and I find that all of the discovery is in that messiness, is in that dance of how do I show up for you,
Yes.
and then how do I get my own needs met in the relationship. So I know this is something that a lot of folks are grappling with or wrapping their heads around. And you've talked a lot about reasons why folks are still single. I do find for my clients, That still sorta stings. Was that a deliberate choice to add the still when you've talked on this topic?
It wasn't really meant to sting. It was just like it was more actually to acknowledge like why people who are just like, why am I still single? Like, why is this still happening? I'm a great person. I put myself out there. I take care of myself. Why am I still single? And these were some of the reasons why you could be on an unconscious level still single.
Yeah, so you say the first reason is we are getting in our own way somehow. I feel like people may acknowledge that, but not know how to discover what it is they're doing that's getting in their own way.
Yeah, so some of the ways in which people get in their own way, this a real unconscious one. It's like it kind of boils down to two things. One is maybe you're dealing with an internal conflict that you're not aware of, which is you really want to find a man and get married to him, but there's a part of you that hates men. Or
Hmm.
you really want to find a partner and have a loving relationship, but you hate yourself. Or you really want to get married or you really want a partner, but because of the culture that you grew up in, your parents, they really want you to marry a certain person, but that's not who you're attracted to. That's not what you want. So these are real internal conflicts. And then the other thing is you say that you want this relationship, but you keep choosing the people who are emotionally unavailable.
Right. Right, and we do that because
There's a number of reasons why, and I'll go through them. One reason is that um, that's all you've ever known. That's all you've ever known. Like you actually you have not seen nor experienced what it is to to have two people who love and support and give to each other. So you just don't know it. Another
Mhm.
one is you don't feel worthy of it. You are struggling with your own vulnerability, and so you feel more comfortable being in a relationship where you are constantly giving and chasing, because then the moment that person is available, you're afraid of that, right? And then there's just you know I, I just have to be honest, and this is just a reality. There's an immaturity, and it's about getting more mature. And what I mean by that is, stop going for the charming, hottest person in the room. Go for the person who has character, who has depth, who can actually um, meet your needs on a deep level. And so we have to kind of get less superficial, because
Hmm.
sometimes that emotionally unavailable person, the reason why we keep chasing them is because they're great in bed. We're really attracted to them. They look exactly how we've always imagined that, the man or the woman that we want them to look. And it's like, well, you got to stop. And then one thing that I see that women do, which I'm on a mission to get women to stop doing this. Um, they will get obsessed with being beautiful enough, attractive enough, special enough to get the person they're attracted to, instead of being in the position of, wait, do I even want them? And so
Yeah.
there's this fixation with getting the person to choose you without an inner conversation and dialogue around, wait, do I even choose them? Why am I so fixated on this? So that need for validation, as opposed
Yeah.
to the need for true connection.
Yeah, and I think we conflate those 2
Yes.
often because of, what's happening chemically in our bodies. There's also that emotional roller coaster that we're riding when we're like, "Ooh, they like me.
Yeah.
I'm into this. This is like the hottest person in the room." And we're feeding off of that. And then we're also feeding off of the lows. If we're really being honest, we we kind of chase that roller coaster because otherwise I wouldn't get questions of like, well, how do I know this person is the one, quote, the one? What, what is it supposed to feel like in a relationship? Or like this person is great on paper, but they're kind of boring. It's like they're probably boring to you because you're chasing the roller coaster
Yes.
rather than, right? Just trying I'm running a marathon over
Yeah,
here,
yeah,
Jillian.
yeah. No, totally, totally. So some people really value uncertainty in their lives. They value excitement. They're easily bored. And if they don't know how to meet their needs for adventure and for novelty, they'll seek that out in relationship in a very destructive way. So boredom and the need to like resort to some sort of dramatic drama, whether that's a drama with a person that's creating a drama in their nervous system, that can definitely be one reason why someone's going for the unavailable. Look, a relationship is supposed to be a safe haven. That doesn't mean it's boring. You should still date someone who you can have a good laugh with and you can have a good adventure with, but it should still be safe.
But I'll admit, when I first met my husband,
Yeah.
and he's like so safe, so, emotionally available. Like he'd done therapy since he was a kid, so he just like he had all of the tools that he needed. And I was so used to the roller coaster that I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, Jillian. I was like, "Are you for real?"
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
okay, start being real with me. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
let's be messy. And the thing is, and I know you've talked about that the masks that people wear
Yeah.
when we're starting to date, and when those come down, that's when you're really able to connect and see who that person is. And it's funny because, like, with him, there really wasn't a mask. Like, that really was him, and I had been so trained to look for the mask or that there must be a mask that it was so hard for me to just relax into the relationship and let it be.
I would say that that was you being very smart. And I'll tell you why.
Oh.
Why would you trust someone until they've earned it?
Hmm.
You should assume that someone is, you want to trust people, right? But you're not going to just give all your trust to any man who enters your life. So that's sort of what some might refer to as a hypervigilance. To me, that's wisdom. What would have been a problem is if you could never trust him, keep pushing him away, create a drama where there's no drama, and sabotage. But the fact that it took you a little time to be like, wait, is this real? Like you're actually a person with such a sense of character that what you see is what you get and you're so genuine. Look, it's not like that's so scarce. I don't want to scare people, but it's not that common. It's more common that you're going to see people who are insecure, who are going to be putting up a mask. So I see that as smart. I don't think that people should just assume. I think they should proceed with caution. Keep proceeding, but proceed with caution until you're like, "Oh my god, this person is for real."
That's good advice. And obviously we're years past that,
Yeah.
but I think the there was a point it where I realized that the waiting for the other shoe to drop was starting to sabotage my ability to relax into the relationship. So that is a dance.
How did you stop it?
This idea of building trust is really, really important in my work as well. Like seeing how someone's actions and words align over time. And I know we're both on the same page with the, slow love and really
Yeah.
taking your time to see who the person is. So, we dated for almost 4 years before we got married. I'm not saying like everybody wants me to tell them timelines. How much time before we meet? How much time before we're exclusive? How much
Oh
time before
yeah,
we
no,
get
I
married?
get that all the
Okay.
time. It's like I don't know.
So, yeah, yeah. So this is not me saying like 4 years is the correct amount
Yeah.
of time. It felt actually a little bit too long to me,
Yes.
but here we are. But what what I did was lean into that the truth
Mhm.
and the trust
Mhm.
and took the time to answer all of those questions I had, 'cause sometimes I see that people, it's like ready, fire, aim, like, we we start with we start with the end point.
Yeah.
Like, "Okay, well, I want the relationship, so now I'm gonna make all of the information that I learn fit the conclusion that I have." It's like how my daughter writes, a paper.
Uh-huh.
She starts at the end, and then she's like, "Okay, well, let me just,
Let's
like,
reverse
figure out the
engineer.
middle."
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
it's like,
funny.
No, let's look for the evidence to build to the conclusion instead of the other way around." And as soon as my daughter learns that, we're gonna be really good at being friends. But that is something that, especially in today's society where dating is happening really fast,
Yeah.
everything is happening really
Yeah.
fast, really, when we think about it. And even the speed of communication, that's one of the biggest things that I've seen change in the 17 years that I've been doing this.
Yeah.
The speed of communication is so fast that we don't even have the time. You don't have time in a text exchange going back and forth where you can't read body language and you can't read
Yes.
intonation and intent, and we're going based on those little emojis and words on a screen without all of the other context. It's very hard to suss out.
Very much so.
There was something that you said that kinda lit me up, Jillian. You were saying that you're on a mission. You're on a mission in your work. I have several missions myself, but I'm really curious, like, what are your missions right now with Jillian on Love and in your work? What are you really passionate about getting people to understand and hear?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I'm very passionate about helping people have more fulfilling relationships, starting with the relationship with themselves. So that's like the broad thing. I feel very passionate about um, getting the messaging early to young girls about um, being more empowered when it comes to love. I think that what has really damaged a lot of women over centuries is making having a partner, making having the one the most important thing in her life. And what happens then is that then she's in a marriage, it's not going well. And then she feels trapped in that marriage because she doesn't have her own money, because she doesn't have any dreams. It's like I don't want to teach women you don't need a partner, you don't need a man, but in some ways I do. And so I again, I believe in partnership. I believe in relationship. I believe that that's how we heal. That's I think that, like I said, a good relationship is very good for our health. A bad relationship is very bad for our health. But I've just seen too many women of all ages literally put their lives on hold for like someone who's like not even that great, just the idea of this person. And there's societal conditioning, there's self-esteem stuff that's interwoven into that. And so I feel really strongly about helping um the youth in that way and just like helping women in general that way. And so yeah, that's those are like the two things. And when it comes to like, having healthier relationships, I always say it's not the quality of your love life is not dependent on whether or not you're a good, like we're not guaranteed the relationship we want. Being a good person doesn't guarantee it. Being a good looking person does not guarantee it. Being rich doesn't guarantee it. It really boils down to the decisions we make. And I think that at the end of the day, it boils down to two very important decisions: who we choose, which I believe who we choose to spend our lives with is the most important decision you'll ever make. And that number two, who you choose to show up as. And it really is those two choices that define our love lives.
I love that, and I have been known to say the same thing. Who you choose to spend your life with is the most important decision you'll ever make, and to add on to that, I find it so interesting that it is still the choice that is often left to chance.
Yes.
Like, we're attached to that idea of, the being rescued in the tower, and we give away all of our power. So, I'm 100% with you on just owning our own power and wholeness in relationships. I have there's a mission that I have that I kinda change my mission every few years
Yeah, that's
based
fair.
on what I see,
Yeah.
in the dating landscape. But I think this one will resonate for you. I have been obsessed with safety for women in dating, and I heard you say on a recent episode that, this is something because you speak to men and women as do I, um, but that, you heard from a man that who had been told he didn't really understand women, and that safety and connection for women were paramount. And I mean, I don't wanna open up a whole can of worms as we're about to wrap up this interview, but, how do you think we can make dating feel safer for women?
So number one, realize that the when you are messaging with a person on a dating app, you are messaging with a complete stranger. Whereas back in the day, it was more common that you would meet someone through mutual friends, through family friends, through community. So you always kind of like knew someone who knew them. There could be some, it's not a guarantee, but there'd be some accountability there. You're meeting someone off a dating app, they are an absolute stranger. One way to be safe, and let's just yes, physical safety, of course, but one way to be safe, to protect your heart and just to protect your time and to protect your energy. Stop getting into like a texting affair with a stranger. Your life should be too busy to waste getting on the phone and texting with a complete and utter stranger
Who may not even actually show up for a date with you.
who may not even actually show up for a date with you, who may actually be married, or who may actually just be totally wrong for you. So stop that immediately. And I would, I say, the usual stuff: meet in a crowded place, don't go home with someone who you don't know. Like, I really, for physical safety, I think that's very, very important. What do you think?
I agree with all of that, and, I'm really grappling with how to okay, let me just answer first. As someone who has worked with dating apps for a long time,
Yeah.
I and I know your feelings about dating apps, a lot of the prevailing feelings about dating apps right now. I kind of say we should be on dating apps with an asterisk. I'm aware
Yes.
that they are imperfect, and I would really love for dating apps to put the safety of women first. I actually heard
Yes.
back in the day, this tells you how long I've been in this business. Back in the day, I heard the CEO of Zeusk
Mm,
at a conference, and she was one of very few female. Now there are
yeah.
more CEOs in the dating space, but, like, I used to go to this conference, for this online dating conference with all, the CEOs and heads of marketing and all, and it would literally be a room full of 90 men and me and a few other, like, dating coaches and matchmakers and executives. And she said in that room, this is more than 10 years ago, if we can figure out how to prioritize the safety of women on dating apps, that's when we will have won. And it really concerns me that that has not been
Yeah.
achieved. Well, I'm getting on my soapbox now, Jillian. it concerns me that that has not been achieved and that we've actually moved further away from it in the last 10 years.
Yeah, I would agree
So
with that.
that's one thing that's one thing I'm very passionate about, and I don't know how to fix that, but as someone who works with dating apps, just know, everybody, I'm working on it. But
Yeah.
the other thing is I'm trying to figure out, Jillian, how to message to men what you have said many times on your podcast and what you said in that particular episode that I'm quoting. It's also the responsibility of men to make dating safer for women. Like, I say, your job on a first date is not, like, get her to like me, impress her with my stuff, buy her things. It is make her feel safe, period. That is your goal.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you really want to impress your date and you really want to impress the date, if your date is a woman, um, make her feel comfortable.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about, like, opening the door. Like, I don't I
Well,
truly do not give a crap about chivalry, but I think people confuse the 2.
yeah, I love chivalry.
Okay.
They can confuse the two. I think chivalry is very important, but that's not what we're talking about right now. We're talking about not just having really good manners, which I think having manners is actually really important. I think one of the things that really bugs me about the modern dating world is that there isn't a lot of manners anymore. And I think that
Yeah.
that's not good. That's not a good reflection of society. I think manners are important. Um, but that's not enough. It's about not being like creepy and weird and only seeing her as a piece of meat. I mean, that's really ultimately the most important thing. It's like
Right.
we women are very aware of when the person who we're on a date with, when they are just seeing us as a conquest. Like we can feel it.
Yeah.
And it's a turn off. And so you want to actually is to make her feel safe, is to make her feel comfortable, and you want to be respectful. And yes, you want to make sure that she's not getting any weird vibes from you. Honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm in agreement with you about the manners. And I
Yeah.
think I think all genders and orientations can work
Yeah.
on being better communicators, better with manners,
Yeah.
better with, just like, I'm in what I call an equality partnership.
Yeah.
And my husband does not open doors for me.
You're
It
right.
doesn't do any of those things.
And that's okay. That's your preference. Yeah.
And that's okay, because that wasn't something that I prioritized,
Yeah.
but, um, I feel a responsibility to treat him with respect and
Yes.
have manners towards him, and
Mhm.
I expected the same from him. My problem with the chivalry is when people think that if they're getting that or if they're doing that, that checks that box of like, "Well, I was
Yes.
I made it safe, I've made it comfortable, I've done the thing," and it's like,
Right. No.
"Thank you, sir, but I can open my I can buy
Yes.
myself flowers, I can write my name in the sand. Can you listen to me? Can you make me feel
Yes.
safe?"
I think all of it's important.
Yeah, and moving through the world as a woman can be, um, terrifying sometimes, and I
Absolutely.
don't know that a lot of men really like, I even have this conversation with my husband. I'm like, "You have the privilege of just parking in the dark edge of the parking lot, and you will never understand."
Never, never understand. But here's where I'll merge. And I know that chivalry, first of all, it's generational. It's also very personal. To me, like if there's no chivalry, like you're never getting a second date with me. That's just me. But I know there are lots of people who don't feel that way. But what I will say though, where the two worlds merge is safety and chivalry is I'll never forget is years ago. I went on a date with someone and it was, night, very much nighttime. It was like midnight or 11 o'clock. And my apartment was about a 5 block walk from, I'm a New York City gal. So it was like a 5 block walk from the like lounge that we were hanging out in. And he did not walk me home. He just
Mm,
got into a cab and the streets
mhm.
were empty. And I never ever I refused to ever see him again because that to me said so much about who he would be as a partner, that he did not even have the manners or wherewithal to say, "You know what? This is my date." And it wasn't a first date. Even if
Mm,
it wasn't a first date. It was like, "I'm walking her home because that's the
yeah.
right thing to do." Empty streets. It's the middle of winter. It's night out. 5 blocks is not enough to just put someone in a taxi cab, like that's ridiculous. And so that alone, that's something that I think that men have to understand. It's like that's not just the chivalrous thing to do. It's actually the right thing to do to be aware of her safety. And yeah, and I completely. He was like wanted to go out with me again. I said, "You're nuts. Never again."
Yeah, it shows care. I think that's,
Yeah.
the through line here. It's not just like, "Do you wanna have sex with me?" It's like, "Do you care
Do you care?
about me?" Emotionally, physically, maybe spiritually one day, but all of those things.
You nailed it. That's exactly it. I felt very uncared for. And I think that a lot of people will experience that and still go out on a date with that person because they want it so badly.
It's very important to listen to those signals you got because you probably felt that in your body too, Jillian, like, all over.
Yeah, I felt it very, very acutely. And in the past, even before this is a long time ago, I may have made some sort of excuse and keep seeing that person. And you have to listen to your body because they're going to do something like that. That is an indication that they don't actually really care. They don't care.
Yeah, we've really gotta pay attention, and especially in that early phase, as you say, as the masks come down and you get to see who they really are. Jillian, I could talk to you all day, but we'll have to do this again. We'll do it on Jillian on Love. So,
Exactly. We'll just continue the conversation there.
thank you so much for being here, Jillian.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.